We'll talk about teeth. So, because as you guys probably all know, most raw vegans have bad teeth. I heard.
I've seen a lot
It's
of them.
a fact because Tamir said so.
He said vegetarian. I think.
No, he said raw vegans.
Wrong? No.
He said fruitarians, actually. That's
Oh.
what he said. Yeah. Having been in that world myself since before you were born, and literally known, hundreds, if maybe thousands of people, I don't know any who have bad teeth. It's not something that's typical, but it does happen, and it happens. The reason that people who, first of all, lots of people have bad teeth, but the reason it often happens with people eating a fruit-based diet is because they're making some significant mistakes. Okay? If we lived in nature, you okay? If we lived in nature, after we ate fruit, what would we do? Like right away, as soon as you're done eating fruit, what would you do? You'd grab your toothbrush and brush your teeth, right? Isn't that what animals in nature do? Oh, they don't have a lot of toothbrushes, do they? Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes people make is they brush their teeth after eating fruit. Have you done this? Yeah, don't do it anymore. Okay? There was a study published around 15 years ago that said that eating an orange or an apple was 3 times more effective than brushing your teeth, at cleaning your teeth, at removing plaque. How? How does that work? Well, it's very simple. When we eat fruit, the acid in the fruit takes a microscopic layer of enamel off of your teeth. Okay? Now, where do you think the plaque lives?
Your gum?
On the teeth, where does it live?
On the enamel?
First layer.
On the top. So if you take off that top layer, guess what? Plaque's gone. Okay? This is what happens when you eat an orange or an apple. Is it just an orange or an apple? No. It's any fruit that contains acid. Do lots of fruits contain acid? Most do. Sweet fruits probably don't contain any significant amount of fruit acid, but pretty much all other fruits do, including melons, including acid fruits, obviously. Subacid fruits, which is the largest category, includes apples, and pears, and mangoes, and papayas, and peaches, and nectarines, and plums, and grapes and cherry. Most of these things are subacid fruits. Sub means low. These are fruits that are lower in acid than acid fruits, but they still have acid. So they're taking a microscopically thin layer of enamel off of your teeth, and they're taking the plaque with it. So far, all's good. What happens if you take that toothbrush and brush your teeth right after eating?
Damage the teeth.
You're going to brush away more enamel because it's been softened by the acid. Don't do that. Okay, it would never happen in nature. You don't need to do it. All right? There's another problem that a lot of people make, another mistake a lot of people make. How many of you have a habit or have had a habit of grazing through the day? You'll eat something, you'll eat an hour later, you'll eat a little bit more. Okay, so when you eat the fruit and you take that microscopically thin layer of enamel off of your teeth, it takes 3 to 4 hours to recreate the enamel. What do you think happens if every hour you eat 1 apple or 1 orange? You keep taking it off without having a chance to put it back. You're going to wear your teeth away. Okay? Don't do that. Don't do that. Eat when you're hungry. Stop when you're satisfied. Has anyone here ever been hungry, truly hungry, and satisfied their hunger with 1 apple with 50 calories? Because that's not very likely. When your body's hungry, it wants a meal, not an apple. 6 apples, 8 apples. Okay, enough apples to actually feel satisfied. If you eat that way, you're not going to be hungry again for hours. You're not going to be hungry again in an hour if you eat enough. Okay? So get out of your head, this idea. Some people think it's better to graze. It's not better. It's not better because your digestive tract is always working. Much better would be to have fewer meals, larger meals, and more time your digestive tract is completely at rest. Which is why I typically eat 2 meals a day at most. Typically. I say typically because there are exceptions. Social situations, there might be some grazing, but that's every once in a while. Day to day, month after month, 1 meal in the afternoon, 1 meal early evening, that's it. Done. That's all I need. My digestive tract is at rest most of the time, and my teeth have all day long not being affected by these issues. Okay, does it make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Those are probably the 2 biggest mistakes, but there's others. How many of you, when you started eating raw, if you did, how many of you ate a lot of nuts and seeds? How many of you ate nuts and dried fruit? There's a really bad combination. Okay? Concentrated sugar and concentrated fat. And what happens when you eat this combination together, dried fruits get sticky, don't they? Sticks to your teeth. This is like eating candy in terms of the impact on your teeth. Okay, when you eat fresh fruits, it doesn't stick to your teeth. The fact there's a lot of sugar doesn't matter because it's not sitting there. When you're eating in combination, or you're eating dried fruit at all, or even worse in combination with nuts or seeds, you're creating a much bigger issue. Can everyone see that? Okay, so, again, first of all, we talked recently about hydration just a couple days ago. How many raisins do you think you should be eating?
None.
I would say you can eat raisins in the ratio you find them in nature. Every once in a while you get a big bunch of grapes. There's like 300 grapes in 1 raisin. That's the ratio that you can have dried fruit. Okay? 1 raisin for every 300 grapes. Okay? You can probably eat 1 dried apple for every 300 apples you eat. Right? But no more than that. Dried fruit's going to create an issue because it's not only going to affect your teeth. Remember, it's sucking the water out of your body. Anything that's very low in water content requires water for you to be able to move it through your system. And again, the point, it sounds silly, but in the ratio we'd find it in nature, why? Well, if we lived in nature, that's all we'd have access to. How many raisins would you find? Not very many, right? Because where grapes grow in places that are fairly humid most of the time. Grapes don't dry out, they rot most of the time. So you're not going to find very many raisins, right, in France. Do you live near a grape growing?
Yeah.
Do you live near where they grow grapes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think grow everywhere.
they grow everywhere. Okay. You don't see a lot of raisins. Raisins are largely man-made things, right, and way too dry to be something we should be consuming. So any dried fruit with nuts, we're creating issues, all right? Avoid those simple mistakes and you'll be fine. By the way, brushing teeth, okay? If you want to brush your teeth before you eat, not after, okay? Brush your teeth before you eat, not after. If there's stuff on your teeth, first of all, your food will taste better if you clean your teeth and your mouth before you eat. And this is going to be an issue for some of you, until maybe you fast again. After this, some of your mouth's already going to be pretty clean as a result of finishing the process. Not now, right? Right now, the mouth can be pretty scary. Who knows what I'm talking about? Some of you know what I'm talking about, right?
I want to run for my own.
Yeah, exactly.
What about flossing?
Well, flossing, I don't know. It's an unnatural thing. It's probably okay. I'm not so sure it's harmful, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
What about water pick?
Again, I don't know.
Just water.
Yeah, it might be okay. Now, when I was a little kid, I hated brushing my teeth and I didn't do it, right? Unless my mother actually stood there and made me do it. But later on I thought, Well, the harder I brush, the cleaner they'll be. So, super hard up and down, not a good idea. You want to brush gently. Remember, brushing your teeth is not natural. And it's largely unnecessary if your diet and body are clean. Your mouth doesn't taste bad, your tongue's not coated, you don't have bad breath. You don't have to worry about brushing your teeth so much if your body and your diet and your mouth are already clean. But if you do still want to do it, you can do it when you wake up in the morning before you eat. You can do it before any meals you have. And if you want to, before you go to sleep, if it's been long enough, should be at least 3 hours after eating, you can brush your teeth. But you don't want to brush your teeth right after eating, okay? All right? Juices, be careful. The worst are things like lemon and lime juice, which I'm guessing you're probably not drinking straight in a glass, right? No one drinks lemon or lime juice. But if you put it on food, let's say you put it on salad and you bite into a bunch of it, it's pretty acidic. Lemon and lime juice are just over pH 2. Okay, we talked about oranges, which are pH 3.5 roughly. So lemon and lime juice is somewhere on the order of 50 times more acidic than oranges. It's a big difference. It might be 35 times, but it's significantly more acidic. Acidic enough to take your teeth apart. Now, in your body, it's fine because they're alkaline-forming foods, but your teeth itself shouldn't be exposed to strong acids. Okay, so be careful if you're using things like lemon and lime juice. If you're drinking juices, which are, again, most of them are going to be around pH 3 to 3.5, I don't know. Maybe that's okay. I don't think drinking juices is a good idea, and that's a whole nother conversation. But for the purposes of your teeth, I think it's probably okay. But I might be a little cautious. Okay? Any questions about anything we've covered so far? Yeah.
Tamir was saying that the fruitarian have bad teeth. And last time you were saying that fruitarian, if they hadn't fasted before, were sometimes suffered more during fasting than
Well, they're usually
others.
dehydrated, which is what I was specifically referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the people that haven't fasted and don't drink enough water. I mean, the people who haven't fasted and drink water are usually a little bit better than people eating a typical diet, people eating a fruit-based diet, because there is more water in the diet. But those people who are eating a fruit-based diet and don't drink water are usually very dehydrated. That may have some, again, it affects everything. Your bones and teeth are 50% water. And it may well be, if you're dehydrated, they're less than that. And that could create problems as well. Nothing's going to be healthy if it's dehydrated. So that could be an issue for some people. But again, I just haven't seen, maybe I've met one or two people who have eaten a fruit-based diet that had teeth problems. It's not something that I would say is common. It's not something I've run into a lot of. But there are a lot of people out there who don't know what they're doing and who make a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of people out there who are overeating on things like dates, which are very high in sugar. Okay? And dry. Who here's eaten a fresh date? Israelis should all raise their hand, right? Because they grow in Israel. If you've never seen a fresh dates aren't brown, and they're not wrinkled, they're not dry. They're not super juicy, but they're like yellow, orange, and they're plump. They look like little plums.
Right now is the season.
Yeah. They look like little plums. Okay? They're allowed to dry. Dates, because they grow in dry climates, if you leave them on the tree, they'll dry out. And that's how people want them. Why? What happens is they dry out.
They get sweeter.
They become sweeter because the water is a much smaller percentage. So the way most people eat dates, they're probably similar to raisins in terms of water content, 20 to 25%. Dates are different because they're not dried in a dehumidifier. They're not dried out on purpose. And so you can buy dates at different stages. In September, October, you can still get wet dates. in Israel, where they're brown and they're sweet, but they're much juicier than you'll buy them. Like, you know, if you go to the US and you buy dates in June, July, they were picked 6-8 months earlier, and they've been drying out ever since. Unless they're kept in a freezer, they've been drying out. So they're never gonna be particularly moist. If you're in the US, by the way, I've got friends in California who have a farm business called the Date People. And they've got like 20, 25 varieties of organic dates. Look them up. This is the time to order. Order now if you want them. I mean, don't eat a lot of dates, but if you want them, you can ask them to send you a wet pack. And they'll start shipping in early October. And they're good because they're still juicy. Sorry? The Date People. But anyway, let's come back to the teeth. Okay, so if you're eating a lot of things like dates, you've got a lot of sugar that's going to stick to your teeth. You're going to potentially create some issues for yourself. Those are really the biggest problems. You know, avoid those issues, and you shouldn't have any problems. Of course, fasting, what you're doing right now, allows your body to clean out the garbage that doesn't belong there, which means a lot of the bacteria that can create issues are going to be gone. You know, if your diet's really clean after this, with just basic maintenance, you should be perfectly fine. That's certainly been my experience. I've been to a dentist twice in 30 years. And the first time I went, I got a call from an ex-girlfriend's husband. She'd married a dentist, and holistic dentist, and he wanted to remodel his offices. And his wife, my ex-girlfriend, said, call Loren. He's really good at design. He can help you, he'll design a new space for you. And so he called me, bless you, he called me and asked me if I'd do this for him. And I said, sure. And I thought, maybe I had some mercury amalgams in my mouth, maybe we can do a trade. So he said, okay, that's fine. I mean, he was ready to pay me, but I was like, maybe we'll do a trade. He said, come on in, let me take a look. So I'm sitting in his chair in his office. And, well, I'll get to that later. But, he takes a look and he says, let me show you the bacteria in your mouth. So he takes a swab and he puts it on a slide and he puts it on a big screen. And he says, there's one over there, and there's another one down there. He said, normally, the average patient, he said, the slide is covered with bacteria. And when he was all done examining, he said, I've never seen a mouth so clean. And I laughed because I'd known him for 5 or 6 years. My ex-girlfriend started bringing him to the hygiene conferences where she and I had met some years earlier. They got married and he started going. He wasn't a vegetarian, right? She was a raw vegan. He wasn't a vegetarian, but he would go to these conferences with her. And I was telling him, fasting, raw food, he wasn't buying any of it. Wasn't interested, didn't want to believe it. So he says to me, I've never seen, this is a guy who at the time was probably 47 or 48. He'd been practicing dentistry for 20 plus years, right, 25 years. He said, I've never seen a mouth as clean as yours. I said, well, I've been telling you, right? It's because I fasted and eat an optimal diet, right? So then he says, I'm thinking to myself, I got a lot of amalgams. I said, I just said, while I'm sitting there, I said, it's ironic that you called me to hire me. I'm probably going to have to come out of pocket and pay you. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've got a lot of amalgams. I know it's expensive to take them out. It's probably going to cost more than my work is worth. He said, what do you mean? You only have, and I forget what the number was now. He said, you only have 8. I was like, no, I've got like 18, 12, whatever it was. I don't remember the numbers now. This has been like 15 years ago. He said, Loren, I'm looking in your mouth. I can count, okay? You only have X number. In the 11 or so years since my previous dentist visit, the other amalgams had either fallen out, which I probably would have noticed, or disintegrated over time, which happens, and the cavities had filled themselves back in. Now, I'm not the only person this has happened to. It does happen sometimes. Now, people ask me all the time, they see this video and they're like, will 21 days fasting, will it heal all my cavities? And I've said, I don't know, but I doubt it. I mean, this happened for me over 11 years with many fasts during those years and a perfect diet all that time. I don't know when it occurred. I didn't even know it had happened until after the fact. So I don't know how long it took. I wouldn't expect that to happen quickly. But it's not surprising to me. Dentists say it can't happen. I've had dentists comment on that video, you're a liar. There's no reason for me to lie, I'm just telling you what happened. Okay? But teeth and bones aren't so different. Bones heal all the time. They heal all the time. So first of all, I think the most important topic that we haven't touched on yet is root canals. Anyone know what a root canal is?
Yes.
What's a root canal?
They kill the nerve.
Well, the nerve is usually already dead, and they remove it, and they leave the tooth. So you have it's a dead tooth that's sitting there. And this has been a standard practice for a long time. And there's still, most conventional dentists would defend this practice and say it's perfectly fine. And it's a good idea because you keep your tooth. Many holistic dentists have realized that it is a serious potential health hazard. Because what happens is you wind up with a pocket underneath the tooth where bacteria collects, and you can get all kinds of serious infections that can be life-threatening infections. Personally, from what my reading of their stuff and listening, I actually had a client who was a very well-known holistic dentist. People would fly from all over the world to see this guy. And he said, never, ever do a root canal. And if you have one, have it taken out. Okay, have the tooth removed. It's not a good idea. Really dangerous. I would personally never ever do one. Now, that means you have an issue. Then you got a hole. So what do? Well, you can leave the hole. Okay, that's one possibility. You can do an implant, which, unfortunately, there's really no good options here. The implant means they drill into your bone. What they used to do, still do sometimes, is a titanium post. Titanium is believed to be the most non-reactive metal, strong, light. So the titanium post goes into your bone, and then there's a fake tooth that sits on top of that, that you see. And what they do these days is they use cubic zirconium, which is fake diamond. It's a man-made crystal, which some people do better with, are less reactive to. Okay, so those are your options. Drilling into the bone's not a great thing, but it's one possibility. Another option, which also has its serious drawbacks, is a bridge. And a bridge is where you have a fake tooth which is connected to the teeth on either side. In order to connect to the teeth on either side, they file the teeth down. So you're losing some of your natural tooth material, and it's not really a great thing to do. But these are the basic options. And then, of course, you can get a retainer that fits in your mouth and holds a tooth there. I can't imagine wanting to do that. I wore a retainer when I was a kid, had needed to have my teeth moved. It's nasty. I hated having that thing in my mouth. So I wouldn't want to choose that option, but those are the options that I'm aware of. All right, any questions about any of that?
What about retainers, or Invisalign, or plastic retainers and metal retainers? People who get their teeth corrected.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. I suppose there are times where it's so bad it might make sense to do it. I think unfortunately, oftentimes they're creating issues by moving things around, and maybe it's better not to. But again, I don't really have much expertise there. The other thing I'll say, I touched on amalgam fillings. Anyone familiar with amalgam fillings? They're sometimes called mercury amalgams, and they are 50% mercury. And mercury is incredibly toxic. And putting it in your mouth is universally a bad idea. In fact, putting it in your body, anywhere in your body, is a bad idea. So it would probably be best if you have mercury amalgams, these old silver fillings, to have them removed and replaced with something else. There are no perfect alternatives. Okay, the perfect alternative was to not have eaten the crap in the first place so you didn't get cavities, and it's too late for that. Now, what you're left with are a number of man-made materials. They use different materials. There are tooth-colored materials, and they can mix it up to make it closer and closer to your tooth color that they can use. But I've had clients who've reacted and had to have them replaced 5 or 6 times with, trying different materials, because there's all kind of different formulas. It just depends on how sensitive you are. People can be reactive to any of these things because none of these things actually belong in your mouth, right? All of them are going to be reactive for some people. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
Can gums get more sensitive during fasting?
Yes, gums do get more sensitive during fasting. You are likely, most of you, if you brush your teeth, if you brush your gums, you're likely to have some bleeding while you're fasting. That's perfectly fine. Don't worry about that. That happens because they're healing and are more sensitive. Nothing to worry about. It would probably be best, not to brush them too much or too hard. Leave them alone as much as you can. But even if you don't touch them, there might be some bleeding. Okay, that's okay. No worries. Yeah.
What about removing wisdom teeth? A lot of people do it.
What about removing wisdom teeth? Yeah, I mean, again, I think this all comes down to the issues with jaw shape and size and the placement that a lot of people wind up with problems. I would say don't ever remove them unless you actually need to. If you have a problem and there's pain, etc., sure, then, take them out. You'll be okay, but I wouldn't take out anything. I would have no surgeries, no matter how minor you think they are, if you don't need to. Okay, every surgery, no matter how minor it is, has negative implications for your health. It's traumatic to the body, and to the extent that you're taking any kind of anesthesia, whether it's local, where they just numb your gum, your mouth, or it's general, which is much worse, where they knock you out. I mean, that should absolutely be avoided whenever possible. Okay, should never be done. If you can avoid ever having another surgery, do that. Don't have one. Okay, it may not be avoidable, but if you can avoid it, avoid it. In most cases, they're unnecessary. Even the American Medical Association says 50% of surgeries performed in the U.S. are unnecessary. My guess is it's probably more like 90%. Okay, I would do it only if really, truly necessary.
There is a biocompatibility test that will test you to know which is the best metal or zirconium or whatever for your particular chemistry.
Okay. Everyone hear that?
Yeah.
Biocompatibility test that can tell you if you're going to have dental work, you're going to have a post in your mouth, what is the best metal or zirconium for you, which is best for you. That's good to know. So she has thermography pictures. Thermography it uses heat to take a picture of what's happening. And so she's got these pictures that show she had root canals, and she had pictures taken with the root canal there, and then after taking them out. And she says you can see the inflammation that was present with the root canal. After how long? How long were the root canals there?
Long time.
Yeah. So it's not like they were just done and there's going to be some inflammation because you just had a procedure. This is after years of having them there. There's a problem. There's an ongoing issue if you've got root canals. Okay, if you have root canals in your mouth, I would take them out as soon as you can.
Maybe it's just first impressions, but these few nights have raised some questions.